As we begin this, let me remind you of something. We all bring baggage to any new encounter. When you go to the movies, when you meet a new person, and when you read anything, when we read anything, what we take with us are assumptions that have built up over the years because of input we get from other people, from other printed materials, from, well, now that we're in the Bible, from preachers, from teachers, from church ritual, from hymnody, from art, particularly in the book of Exodus. There's been a lot of artistic interpretation of this book, including by such luminaries as Cecil B. DeMille in the 50s when he made the Ten Commandments, right? I think a lot of us, I was a child at the time, but a lot of us, when we read any of this or hear any of this, what's in our head is hearing Charlton Heston as the voice of God, for instance. That kind of stuff, if at all possible, bracket as you reread or read for the first time this text, because the text will surprise you. Stuff that you've heard or learned may not be there, even though somebody's told you it's there. Or it may be actually in the text presented in a slightly different way. That's especially true, obviously, of the movies. Finally, before we actually move into it, well, this is a way of moving into it. Dating and authorship, if we thought it was difficult to find the authors of most of the books of the New Testament, and it is, it's almost impossible when you get to the Hebrew Bible. For one thing, it's much older. For another thing, in terms of dating, the editorial history is so much longer. I mean, in the New Testament, all of that was done in about 100 years, from about 20 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus until into the early 2nd century. But with the Hebrew Bible, we're talking about 1,000 years or more. The book of Exodus, we're talking about a couple of 100 years. The authors, there are several authors, and they are distanced from one another by hundreds of years. So I can't tell you when it was written. I can tell you that there's one section that may be one of the oldest parts of the entire Bible, and it's in this book. It's a thing called the Song of Miriam, which you've often heard expanded as the Song of Moses, but the original part of it is a thing called, it's about 2 verses, is the Song of Miriam. That is a picture of the first page of the book of Exodus in Hebrew, from the Hebrew Bible. What the finger is pointing to is actually the name of the book, this word that looks like it ends with an English W. We get our names of most of the books of the Hebrew Bible from a Greek translation of that Bible. So Exodus is actually a Greek word, which means exit. The Greeks named their books after the basic content of each of the books, but the Hebrews named their books after the first important word. In this case, it's Shemot. That's how you pronounce that word. And it means names, because the beginning of the book is, these are the names of the children of Israel who were coming into Egypt with Jacob, each in his own house, etc. Okay, this is one way of looking at the contents of the book as a kind of outline. Now, if you have access to a commentary on the book of Exodus, or even a 1-volume commentary on the whole Bible, you will find much more detailed outlines. But I show you this one because it's quite convenient. And I particularly like, under topics here, under the line, the first bunch, chapters 1 through 18, is getting out of Egypt, which is what that's about. But I particularly like the way they put getting Egypt out of Israel, because this whole section 19, which is the first encounter of the people with God at Sinai or Horeb, depending on where you read. This is when all of the Egypt baggage that these people have been toting around for hundreds of years begins to be chipped away with a whole new way of understanding who they are, that there is a God who is their God, and what all of that has to do with the way they live their lives.